I am Brian Mays. Follow along on our adventures chasing all kinds of game in the heartland of America. Our passions run from the North Woods rivers all the way out to the wild and wide open prairies. We are untamed, and wild is all we chase. This is the Amaazen Outdoors Podcast.
Oh, that's a ski, dude. That's a moss ski.
There's one on the tree right there.
Oh, there's another one. That's a good way to start the morning. I'm gonna drink some of my beer quick.
What is going on, ladies and gentlemen? Brian Mays here, back for another episode of the Amaazen Outdoors Podcast. Would you please like, share, subscribe, tell a friend, share the podcast. It all helps at the end of the day. Quick notes, HW Launchers. If you're in the market for a bird launcher, head on over to hwlaunchers.com. Tell Jeremiah you heard about his launchers here on the Amaazen Outdoors Podcast. If you're in the market for some slip leads, check cords, replacement Garmin collars, check out RPM Training Products. They're located in west central Minnesota. Joe's a great guy. RPM Training Products. Hunt Ready just came out with a new run and gun style, smaller, pared down modular vest. If you haven't seen it yet, and you're in the market maybe for a new hunting vest, head on over to huntready.com. Prairie Chicken Project of Wisconsin. They're always looking for a little bit of funds. Check out the Prairie Chicken Project in Wisconsin. Maybe donate a couple bucks. Wisconsin Sharp-tailed Grouse Society. Wisconsin just announced a draw for a limited hunt in 2025 for the for sharp-tailed grouse. So you should help those folks and join the Wisconsin Sharp-tailed Grouse Society. Let's get on with today's show. We have Dennis from Aspen Thicket Grouse Dogs. Should be a good show. All right, folks, we're back for another episode. I've got Dennis Stakowitz, the owner and operator of Aspen Thicket Grouse Dogs. I almost said gun dogs. Dennis, thanks for coming on the show, man. I really appreciate it.
Hey, Mace, thanks for having me. I look forward to our discussion. I'm really glad to hook up with you.
So why don't you lay the kind of 30,000-foot view and kind of dive down a little bit to who you are so that the listeners can kind of understand where you're coming from if they don't follow you or see you on social media already.
Oh, sure. Well, I am like dyed in the wool grouse hunter. That's pretty much like, I feel like what I was put on this earth to do, I guess. I got started in upland hunting many, many years ago, back in the 70s when I'd follow along with my dad or my mom and dad with my BB gun and walk along and pick up those shotgun shells and smell them. I hope that's bringing back some memories for people, because that really was a cool time. And, just that's kind of the culture that it was back then. You grew up hunting, and even though I grew up in the Muskego area, I'm kind of a transplant. I live in the UP now, but originally for Wisconsin. And we used to, travel from Milwaukee up to northern Wisconsin. Seemed like every weekend in the fall, and we were always bird hunting or deer hunting, the holy grail of Wisconsin hunting, the 10-day deer season.
Well, and back then, hunting up north was good for deer hunting.
Oh, yeah. So I'm lucky at my age, when I became official and had my hunting license, that was like the glory days of the early 80s. All of that. Back then it was the Nicolet National Forest. Now it's Chequamegon National Forest, but the Nicolet, that was like there was really a paper pulp business, and there was a lot of cutting going on, and there weren't a lot of lawsuits. Everybody got along, and man, there were birds everywhere. We didn't even hunt with dogs back then.
Partridge hunters.
Yeah, my dad still called them grouse, but my grandpa called them partridge. But yeah, so
it's a little slang term we use for road hunters nowadays.
So I got to ask, right? Because I'm disconnected from Wisconsin. I do get back there every now and then, of course, to the cabin or whatnot. But once you kind of come up to the UP, you're like a lug nut, right? You just kind of tighten yourself down and rust in place because you have everything up here. But do the road hunters and the old timers still call them Pats in Wisconsin?
Oh yeah, there's still pockets of people who call them partridge for sure. For sure.
Yeah, we get that up here too. Which is kind of cool. I mean, it shows that they've been doing it for a while.
It does, yeah. And I don't know. Like I said, I've always kind of used it as a derogatory term for the road hunters.
Yeah, right.
But
no, the limb squatters.
To be honest with you, I actually grew up in a family that, we deer hunted up north a lot, and we would go up to set up deer camp, and we'd flush grouse, and grandpa and my dad, they called them partridge. So, they were partridge for me until I got a dog and found out what Rough Grouse Society was and all that stuff.
So, but the question really begs, though, like, I could literally ask people, like, my saying would be, are you literally from Wisconsin and Generation X if you haven't driven around in the family station wagon listening to the Packer game partridge hunting?
Yeah, it's definitely a pastime for sure.
we did a lot of that. Dad was not shy about road hunting, and we did it in a yellow Plymouth Volare station wagon. And I remember those days, man. It's a shame we didn't have dogs, because all we needed was a dog in the back. It'd have been perfect.
Oh yeah. I was actually just on another podcast, and I was sharing my first time I ever actually really went grouse hunting. And I shot a limit, but I didn't have a dog, and I shot 3 out of the 5 on the ground.
Right.
But I didn't know what I was doing, man. So they were still partridge to me.
That's the thing. That's a great thing about this sport. We evolve over time, and I kind of evolved over time. Like I did that hunting, and right after I graduated from high school, I joined the military. That was kind of my dad was a Vietnam vet. I always felt like the Vietnam vet got the short end of the stick, and I somehow felt obligated to correct that. So, I needed to be a part of that, and I went and joined the Army. I was tank commander.
Thank you for your service.
Served. Oh, thanks. Thanks for acknowledging it.
Not enough people do, man. It's something that, you're being a tank commander, depending on whether or not you saw conflict or not, your life was definitely on the line for this country. So as a citizen, we owe you a thank you.
It was the best job I ever had. Just like that line in the movie Fury, man, it sticks with you. But yeah, I did that, and, I was in for almost like 10 years, and then I got out and I went to college at University of Wisconsin, Stevens Point. So I'm officially a pointer. I have degrees in natural resource management, conservation biology. I studied a little bit of genetics. And when I was done with that, I was like, I've done a lot of stuff in my life. And at the time I was over 30 years old, 30-some years old. And I was like, I'm going to be one of those guys that just move somewhere to where I want to be and make it happen. And that's kind of the way it worked out for us. I moved up here 2001, I think it was. I started working for the city of Marquette. I was working in the city clerk's office doing like some filing work and stuff, and eventually ended up being the assistant city planner. And now I am the community development director. I'm in charge of land use planning and engineering for the city of Marquette. So I do have a day job that pays for this tremendously expensive dog hobby.
Unfortunately,
And it
I
was
don't
around
have
that
one
time.
of those, so I've chose a little bit of a different
But you
lifestyle.
did,
I
right?
did.
You did.
I did. Yeah. Now I just live on beans and rice.
Yeah, well, if it wasn't, like,
the dogs eat
wasn't
better
for my
than us
boy.
most. I'm looking at
Yeah,
a pallet
like
of
my
dog food,
dog-
and I'm like, man, if I had that much in my fridge, I'd be happy.
I'm just all about, like, I guess I'm really in it for the opportunities for my kids. And we've talked, and yours, your kids, whatnot, they're gone and doing their own thing. And my boys are 14 and 13
Yeah.
and in their prime of, doing things. I was listening to Colin Cowherd the other day in the background, and he said, I am all about education and opportunity for my kids. If they can learn something from it, I'm spending money. And if it gives them an opportunity, I'm spending money. So we put a lot of focus into the boys that way. And if not for that, I'd be retired by now.
Yeah, it's you're at a different point in life. I'm married into kids, and part of the benefit of that was I was looking at early 40s and being an empty nester. So like that's opportunity for me as well, And,
Yeah.
so it was kind of a good deal for me. Which if I had kids and still dealing with college or pre-college, I wouldn't be doing what I'm doing today. That's for certain.
But circling back, one of the first things I did when I got up here is I bought a dog, and I saw an ad in the newspaper, and then back then we actually had a Gander Mountain up here in Marquette.
Really?
And I saw a little post-it, German Shorthaired Pointer puppies, and I'm like, I remember my grandpa had GSPs, and I never hunted with them. I mean, this was when I was really, really young. But, my grandpa had them, they got to be somewhat decent. And I can remember, Iowa in the early 80s and stuff. It seemed like every driveway had a German Shorthaired Pointer when pheasant numbers were higher and stuff. And we had some trips down there. And so I bought the dog. And unbeknownst to me, the dog, for one, it was an accidental litter. And the guy that had him, his name is Patrick McCurry, and I can't thank him enough because that dog came at a really, really right time in my life. I mean, about that time in my life, that dog, you can pretty much say it definitely changed direction in my life. I was still doing the post-military pity party and a little bit of drinking and whatnot, and borderline not being a total cool human being. And that Patrick really, that dog right there did it for me, man. It was a fundamental change in direction for me. But yeah, the dog was an accidental litter, but it just so happens that these were like some of the best bred dogs in the country. And that dog, we named him Gunner. Lakeside Gunner Gone Wild was his official pedigree name because I didn't know what to name him back then. And that dog taught me a lot. That dog was 100% natural ability. If anything, I hindered his development more than helped it, and I learned so much from that dog. To this day, that dog, hands down, best grouse dog I've ever owned.
It's funny how there's some of them that are like that. You're trying to get in on the podcast, aren't you? Sorry, here. It's down, Stella. Mm-hmm. I got a short hair that thinks personal space is not an issue right now. So,
my 16-year-old dog Panzer's looking at me right now like, can I come up in that chair with you? No.
Well, that's basically what happened while you were talking, and I
believe so. Like, I believe, and the more we get to know each other over time and stuff, but I definitely believe in the magic of dogs and like the mystique around this. My wife and I used to musky fish quite a bit, and you can remember, I know you have a fishing background, but there was a time before all the musky fishing tournaments and everything, right? The musky fishermen were like there was a mystique about them. Like, what's wrong with these guys? Like,
yeah.
You know what? Why do they go out there and toss them lures all day long just to maybe see a fish, you know?
Oh, we fly fish for the damn thing. So like, yeah, there's definitely a mystique about it. That's for certain.
Right?
We definitely look like black sheeps of the fishing community.
But the things like that, I believe there's a little bit of magic with that mystique, you know, like, and I think there's a little bit of that with the dogs. And,
I agree.
You know, you could get in.
That's why we're musky fishermen, or maybe ex-musky fishermen and dog guys. You know, I think you get
into a real philanthropic discussion about, you know, why that dog came in my life when it did, right? Like, I have my own thoughts on it, and there's probably people that have other thoughts about it too. But I mean, me personally, I'm convinced that some kind of higher power magic was involved with that.
I don't know how to put it, but I have a dog that I call her my radar, because she knows me. She's my oldest dog, and she never was like this, but I kind of went through this period of my life where I was super unhappy with work, and it was what really led me to leave and then start this whole gig.
And they know, man. The dogs know.
So the minute I raise my voice, she will leave. If she's on the couch or if she's on her dog bed, she will leave and she'll go to the other room. And it's like, I know I could be, you know, a little hothead. It's like, you know, you're dealing with, I'm dealing with the guy from India for, you know, customer service, and I'm putting him on mute and telling my wife how shitty this situation is, and she'll get off the call, you know, and it's like the minute I get hot, she I swear, like, she was put down here on this earth, not only to be my hunting partner and my buddy, but to correct a flaw in my character. Yeah. So I totally understand what you're saying.
Dog. Yeah, that's exactly how that dog came into my life, man. And I recognize that. And basically ever since that moment, I've been like trying to pay it forward. And that's how the breeding came about and everything. It was born in that moment.
That's special. I mean, having that, I'm not far off your path. I haven't bred dogs yet. I'm still in the selection process of which dog I want to breed.
Sure.
But it's my plan. And it's funny how, you know, it was a dog that inspired both of us to, you know, do this stuff.
Right.
You know, it wasn't the bird, it was the dog. And I think, you know, that's what kind of brings a lot of these, you know, bird dogging guys together. Is it doesn't really matter. Don't get me wrong, I love grouse, but it really doesn't matter what the bird is. It's more about the dog and the experience that you have with the dog and others have with that dog. It's a special thing. And to impact not only my life, but I know multiple other people's lives, sounds like your life, to make a total change. There's something special there. There's definitely something magical there.
Oh yeah. Without a doubt. So,
I'm hitting buttons over here.
That's all right.
So you moved up to the UP, got the dog, and started a breeding program in a kennel.
Yeah.
What's that kind of look like? Bring us kind of up to speed, you know, post the moment that everything changes when a guy bonds with a hunting dog.
Yeah, well, what you do is you just take your money and you throw it in a lake, and and then you keep going from there. But it's all money well spent. But I mean, I started out on a 1 acre lot, you know, in a subdivision with a 4-dog kennel permit. And, you know, at the time I had Gunner, I had a dog named Gretchen. I had a dog named Baron. And then I wanted to breed. Baron was Gunner's father. I got him from Patrick in an interesting story. Patrick had to take a job in Detroit, and he's like, man, this dog's not going to live in Detroit. He's like, why don't you take the dog and just hunt it the rest of his life? And I know you want to breed it. So I did. And then I bred that dog to my Gretchen dog, which gave me cancer. So then we had the 4 dogs there at that kennel on that 1 acre lot. And my Panzer dog was going to be the one, and he's still going to this day. That dog is 16 and a half years old. But it was my plan. He was kind of like, that was like the foundation dogs right there. And then because of the way he was bred, I went down to Walnut Hills Kennel. Some of my great mentors in breeding down there, Brenda Rowe and Rick Hopkins, they've been instrumental in helping me out. And, I was talking to him. I'm like, hey, I have this male dog, and, he's a grandson of this dog. And she's like, what? I'm like, yeah, well, I bred the dog. When I bred Baron, he was like 11 or 12 years old or something, So here I was sitting with like some of the, closest stuff to what they had from Hall of Fame dogs. And so they helped me match up a nice female from their kennel with to bring that line forward. And we've been kind of working on that ever since. And we've evolved from that to, now we have some property, we have some acreage, we have a 1,600 square foot dog kennel out there. But we're basically kind of turned into I don't want to say we're a nonprofit, because we're not. I mean, we are a for-profit operation, but most of what we do here kind of supports the upland community and our veterans hunt that we do every year. So essentially, a lot of the income that I do for dog training, whatever, pays for the dog food and the maintenance on the kennel. And then we run a lot of events like the Bonanza and some hunting seminars for novice hunters and things like that. And all of the money that we bring in for that funds our veterans hunt that we do every October, Operation Aspen Thunder. And, I think one of the things that I'm really proud of with my kennel is I feel like I've really developed a line of GSPs that do excel on grouse through, selective breeding, adaptation, and epigenetics, which we could talk about a whole heck of a lot on how we've done that. But, it has proven over time that you can, create an animal that is but a different version of the GSP that's still within the breed standard, but its primary mission in life is to adapt itself to be better at grouse. And
so one of the things
that's about where we've landed.
One of the things that kind of intrigued me in kind of our conversations here prior to the show, and something we were not just the listeners, we worked up a little bit of an outline, and one of the things that kind of stood up and through our work and through that was that you've taken a GSP and you use the word smaller version, and I want to dive into that just a little bit more. Like, what's your belief on why? What's the why? Well, like, why would you want a smaller version of the GSP? And what's a smaller version of the GSP? My GSPs.
Yeah, so my GSPs are a little bit narrower in the chest. And, typically when you think of a GSP, and particularly if you look at the bench bred GSPs, like, they're big, man. Like, those male dogs, they're 65 pounds? I mean, they're big dogs. And, the biggest male that I have here is 52 pounds, which is the bottom end of the breed standard. And my dogs are a little bit longer legged, a little bit narrower chest on them. Very, very good conformation. I have in the last 6 litters I've done, I don't think I've kept a puppy that I can actually hear running in the woods. Like, you don't hear their feet hit the ground. So we're doing something right there. But yeah, they're.
But why?
You know, the best way to describe it is
I get kind of your definition of.
Oh yeah, why is definitely.
Yeah, why?
Durability related, and like, you know, those big dogs, like and I've seen it, right? At the pace these dogs hunt at, and I'm talking, these dogs are essentially, you know, field setters with a short hair paint job. You know, they go over, through, around. I mean, the grouse woods is brutal, right? You spend time in it. Guys that grouse hunt know that it's brutal on a dog. This is not knee-high grass. This is not CRP grass. You know, it's tough on a dog. And I found that the smaller dogs just hold up better.
Okay. I agree with you. I'd go so far because I have 3 different sizes of GSPs, all out of the same, roughly, well, they're all of the same sire. The sire was a 60-pound male. The first 2 are out of the same female.
Mm-hmm.
And they, one of them is a lot more like her father. The other one is a lot more like her mother, who's thin framed, deeper but skinnier chest. She's 50 pounds right now. But the off season weight, she typically runs about 46 pounds during the season. If I can keep 46 pounds on her.
Yeah.
But she's the one out of the whole group that really excels with grouse. She's definitely very durable, but because of her disposition and the way she runs in the woods, with the smaller frame, I think it just puts that nose closer to the ground. And I've thought this for a long time, and, you know, evaluating these dogs versus running, you know, some other dogs. And I see that with a smaller frame dog, they seem to be able to pick up scent better. And it doesn't seem to be, I don't think it's a nose thing. Because I've seen tall dogs with great nose. I've seen 65-pound short hairs that, you know, have great noses. But they get in the grouse woods.
Well, when you look at,
and they make more noise, which you touched on. But I think too, that distance between, you know, ground and nose and the disposition they have in running versus a smaller frame dog sometimes seems to do better. It's just, I've seen enough dogs running in the woods, customer dogs, my dogs.
Well, it's a trend. I agree. And when we talk about conformation, right, and not necessarily show dog conformation, that could be a whole debate that would get a bunch of people mad at me. But I mean, you talk about form and function, but really what conformation for is safe efficiency of movement, right? I mean, to me, that's what it is. Conformation directly leads to the efficiency of movement for a dog.
Sure.
And if you have a smaller dog, longer legs, deeper chest, a little bit narrow, they're going to be more efficient in that movement going through the woods, and they're going to use less energy doing it, and they're going to hold up better. They're going to be more durable. Yeah. And plus all of the good things that you talked about the smaller dog being having a better relationship with the cover and things like that. And I think there's merit to that.
Yeah, and I don't know how much it is. It's just a trend that I see. It's like, oh, here comes a small Brittany, and like that dog just picks it up, and like, oh, here comes a big, you know, tall 70-pound Ryman setter. You know, it's like didn't pick, you know, and it could have been the dog. But, you know,
don't knock on those dogs too hard, man. You won't have many listeners.
I don't mean anything. I to be honest with you, I'm a sucker for a tricolor setter. I'm a total sucker for a tricolor setter. I don't own one yet, but there might be.
Yeah, but you got to remember, like, the thing is, though, you got to remember, like, the setters are kind of like the those are the original grouse dogs, the setters and the pointers.
And that's
they're
why I wanted to
good.
have you on, because, you know, you're
They're
a
very
GSP
good at what they do. Like,
breeding
I would
GSPs
never,
for grouse. And that's just
yeah, I
against
would
the trend.
never,
It's against the
it is. It totally is, because the setters and the pointers are your traditional grouse dogs. And in Wisconsin, the Brittany was king for a while. I remember Brittany's, when I was growing up, were very, very proficient dogs, and there was a lot of them. But not so much the short hair, and that's what I really think kind of makes us unique is what we've done with that. And it's really because I like the breed. I mean, these short hairs you've got a couple of them.
Oh, yeah. I like the breed.
They want to please you, man. Like, they are the most biddable dogs on the planet. And I don't know, all these people say, man, if you're going to train a short hair, you need a 2x4. That has been the exact opposite for me. These dogs are smart. Sometimes they're too smart for their own good. But
well,
man,
and I think that's where the reference
you.
comes from, because you get a dog that's, I don't know, you throw it through a few training scenarios and they're freaking bored, and it seems like, yeah, you do have to throw a 2x4 over their head to, and it's no, you have to come up with a better way to play the game.
Right.
Because they're too freaking
smart. But I mean, if you think about the GSPs, right? Like, they have tremendous noses on them. I mean, I don't think we talk enough about scenting ability with individual breeds of bird dogs. But you think about these GSPs, right? They're training them as detection dogs now. Like, they're the newest thing in the detection dog world, which I think speaks volumes to their nose and their ability to scent. But then if you circle back too, it also speaks to their intelligence, which is extremely high.
I would agree. I would definitely agree. It's something that I don't think gets talked much about. You definitely don't see English pointers or English setters, or, I've seen a Vizsla as a scenting dog, but yeah, I've seen quite a few GSPs in airports over the years, probably the last 5 years. Although I don't think I've been on a plane now that I think about it.
And part of that, but part of that, like, they have knows their intelligence, and it circles back to the biddability that they want to please you, without any real heightened sense of superiority. They really, really like to work for you. Now, that doesn't say that none of these other dogs want to work for you, but these short hairs are top notch on that. Have you ever read any Ted Lundgren stuff? He was an attorney that wrote Hunting the Sun, Grouse and Lesser Gods, and then there was another one after that I forgot. But he grouse hunted with a GSP, and I think the dog's name was Beans. And he summed it up by said, and I'm paraphrasing it, but he spoke about them hunting all day long and then looking back at you to see if there's anything else they could do for you. And I find that to be true.
It's one of the, I don't know. I have GSPs for a reason. I will always have GSPs. GSPs will always be a foundation in whatever we do here. Because
it's not because they don't shed, because they shed.
No, yeah, they do. I thought maybe we were going to be on the same path when I got an English pointer, but I found English pointers shed even more. So, but no, it at least mine does, and she's all white, so it stands out a little bit more than some of the darker colored hair out of the other dogs. But there is something special for me about short hairs, the versatility, I think, too, that I've just been able to do with my dogs. I've taken them all over the country. I've thrown everything at them. And they just go out to work, and they don't ask questions. They want to go. I've seen some other dogs on hunting trips that have, been beat up, and I don't know, my short hairs are always pushing the edge of their limits to the point where they shouldn't, I had my one dog, she was down to 42 pounds at the end of October, and I was feeding her 4 cups a day. And the last last 2 or 3 guide trips, I had to pull her. I just couldn't run her anymore because she literally would run herself into the ground. That's how much she wants to give. And
All right.
I don't
I'm
know.
with you.
There isn't another breed that I've seen that consistently throws off dogs like that. And I'm willing to say that because I own one. Now, again, I've got nothing against other dogs.
I breed them, you know.
I run setters and pointers during my season. So I run 3 different breeds, and they all want to work hard. But yeah, I also like my dogs in the house. Now I've got 4 dogs in my house, and I expect them to behave, and that's part of what I'm looking for my breeding program as well, is because, let's face it, guys, there's not a lot of guys out there like you and I. Most people buying a dog.
Well, they got to have them dogs. And that's an important part too, because that goes back to being biddable and their temperament is, once they get past the pterodactyl stage of like a year and a couple months or whatever, they definitely have an off switch, man. And that is extremely appreciated. Like I had a guy come, he's interested in buying a pup, so he came and check out the kennel this week, and he, after we looked at the kennel and stuff, we came in, sat down and had a cup of coffee at the counter, and a couple of the dogs come walking around the corner, and he's like, "Oh, you got dogs in the house?" And like, I would never even know. And I'm like, "Yeah, they'll come check you out or whatever. They don't get too excited. It's not hunting time, so that's good." And that's what the short hair is.
So let's chat a little bit about a few of the other things that maybe I was just talking about this. Somebody asked me, what makes a great bird dog? And I'm like, well, let's caveat this with the fact that what makes a great bird dog for you and what you want, what you're doing is totally different than, somebody else. So that's a colorful lens. Which one do you want me to pick? Right. But let's drive it down to the basics. There's nose, there's instinct to point, I think you have written down, like drive and range. And we were talking about, biddability or, cooperation, temperament. We kind of talked a little bit about, but let's gauge a little bit more of the basics. How do you gauge like the dog's nose and what do you, when you start talking about these characteristics and traits, and for kind of layman's terms, and like, how are you evaluating a dog to go, okay, I'm going to breed you, but I'm not going to breed you? Or, even in puppy selection, you have a litter, and it's like, well, how do you know already at 8 weeks when you're trying to get rid of a few other dogs? Like, if you're going to take a dog out of there, like, what goes into that thought process from a breeding perspective?
Yeah. So for me, like that whole part about selecting a puppy is, for years, I just picked the paint job. I rely on the parents to produce what I expect in those puppies, and it generally holds true. And keep in mind, we do a lot of genetic testing, and we don't DNA our dogs just to prove they're our dogs. We do the embark panels. We got 257 different markers. So we're not matching up recessive traits. We carry a pretty high coefficient of inbreeding, but we know what we're breeding. And really it comes down to the parents proving themselves, and how do we, what do I look for per se in a good grouse dog? That, based on my experiences, they need to have a strong pointing instinct. I mean, it needs to be on the highest end of the spectrum. And where that really comes into play later on is the ability for letting a dog relocate, right? Because we know grouse run. But, that strong pointing instinct, it also relates to nose, right? Because you can tell if the dog has a strong pointing instinct, how far off it's pointing its birds. and you can generally tell that in a training field or whatnot. Hey, that correlates directly to the grouse woods, and that also relates to how they carry their head. Right now, you had mentioned that the dog being lower to the ground to pick up scent, and that's good. But the important thing is like their headset should be level. Like look for carry a little bit of a higher head. Like some of my dogs, when they run through the woods, like you'll see them go to the ground a little bit, and then that head will come up, and they'll run for like 60 yards, and it looks like they're looking at 45-degree angle upwards. But what they're doing is they're trying to track that warm scent to see if they can pick it up. And that the high head, the strong pointing instinct, and the intelligence, and the way that I've been able to breed, at least select dogs through intelligence, I've probably been more lucky than good. But I've had the males in my line, and Baron, Gunner, Panzer, and then Scout, who's a 7-year-old male I've had. I've seen every single one of those male dogs get on a grouse, point, relocate, point, relocate, point, relocate, break off the grouse, make about a 60-yard circle, and start working the bird back towards me. You can't train for that.
No, you
right?
can't.
That's a perfect example of intelligence. And when you see a dog doing that, you're like, that you breed that one. That's the one you breed.
I got clients that were hunting with me a couple of years ago, and he's like, I've never seen a dog work that grouse back and pinch that grouse for you and me and the customer or him, and he's like, it circled off and got on the other side of that grouse, and it just pinched it. And he's like, I ain't never seen anything like that. He goes, that was really cool. And yeah, she's really, I kicked myself that I spayed that dog early on, before I knew what I had.
That's okay. I fixed my Gunner dog, best dog I ever had on grouse. So don't feel bad.
I know.
Matter of fact, we did it at like 4 months old too, when you're not supposed to, but he lived a good, long, healthy life.
I did it at 6 months old. And yeah, like I said, I didn't know what I had there. And I kicked myself on that one. I've been chasing that one with the last couple, and it's there, but I don't know. There's something special about that one. I don't say that, and I don't honor. I do hold her a little bit on a pedestal, but when you've got guys paying you to hunt and they start complimenting you in droves on one particular dog, you start looking at what makes that particular dog. And there's a lot of things I've seen over the last couple of years, like, fuck, excuse my French, but
I'm with you.
Yeah, it's yeah.
Well, that's one of the things about like being a dog trainer, right? And so we do a couple different programs here. We do like a puppy program where I get the dog and it's 5 months old and nobody's messed with it, and it's an easy transition to birds, gunfire, and to get it pointing and hand it off to the owner, right? And then I also do a wild bird program where I'll take dogs for people for a month. We run them in the woods on grouse and woodcock, and these are dogs that are 2 to 3 years old, ready to be finished, and we put the finishing touches on them, put them on wild birds, then bring them back and tighten them up a little bit because they do get loose on wild birds a little, and then hand them off to the owner. They do.
Yeah.
I mean, it's good to acknowledge that because they do, right? Especially a young dog that's 2 to 3 years old, maybe going into its third hunting season. It's had a couple birds shout over it, but typically it points and then it bumps birds when it relocates and stuff like that. We do the wild bird program to tighten up on that and give them more experience. But, to bring this in for a landing, the other dogs that you get in the middle are dogs that really need some type of work, right? And a lot of times when people are coming to a trainer nowadays, unless they just have a lot of money and not a lot of time, it's kind of like a last resort effort. Like they've tried some stuff and they're maybe getting a year or 2 or 3 and they're like, I don't know what the hell I'm doing. This dog is kind of broken and I need some help, right? And you get those dogs in and yeah, we can fix them, but boy, it sure makes you fucking happy with what you got.
Yeah, part of my dilemma, I'm kind of trying to do some of the same things because I'm running my dogs on wild birds and I've got kind of extra slots. I've got kind of 2 open kennels to be able to, kind of take dogs and tighten them up on the wild bird contact, because that's really where I specialize. I mean, I'm not the guy that's going to go out there and, start the wool training process on a puppy. I can do it. It's not what I enjoy the most, and it's not cross-sectioning my guiding business. I
don't even do it with my dogs. My own personal dogs, they don't even know what the word woe means.
Yeah, I do it
because I let the birds teach them.
I always introduce woe because it's more of as much as it's a reinforcement that I'm looking for from the birds in that equation. I kind of use it as a safety issue too, like literally running across the road, like trying to stop a dog if I can't. And so I've always kind of taught that. I've found that as I progress in dogs, I teach it less. It's a term I use, but there's other ways that I kind of teach it naturally that, I don't want to have to come up hard on a dog. And,
Well, I've learned from the field trialers, right? Like a lot of the field trialers don't say, whoa, they take advantage of a dog's early pointing instinct. And when that dog is 4 or 5 months old and it's pointing all day long because it doesn't know any difference yet, they make that little quail whistle or a little buzz noise or something like that, and the dog associates that with standing still. And I firmly believe in that. And I've gone to doing that more now than anything.
Sure. I've seen a little bit of that, and I haven't been exposed to a lot of it. I still, in at least my field trial circles, I still see a little bit of woe, but you're talking like you kind of like shush the dog. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And I what I found is that when you have a young dog and it's naturally pointing and you do that and it becomes like something normal for them, I firmly believe that it helps in their staunchness.
It makes sense. I kind of do a sequence of kind of whistles to kind of communicate to my dogs while we're in the woods. And, so like I have a recall whistle, and then I have kind of but I it's more of just a lip whistle. I don't carry around like a whistle and blasting a whistle.
When I had all the time in the world before kids, my first couple of dogs, I had a whistle. I taught them whoa. They were all broke. That Gunner dog won a hunting dog stake on a grouse cover trial. But those dogs were flat broke, and I even had whistle commands for whoa. And I hit that one blast on the whistle, that dog would dig in and dust would fly up. That was also back in the day of the whoa post.
Sure. Yeah, no, I guess my point though was like I kind of have nonverbal commands to at least dirty commands to kind of come around and that kind of stuff in the grouse woods. I never really thought about using some other. I do have a friend that says that he instead of whoa, he's just stuck to stay. So when he walks up on a point, it's just stay. And I've always thought that was kind of I think it's a great mesh of two ways to accomplish the same thing, and so
it just goes down to there's more than one way to skin a cat. And
absolutely.
One of the things that I really, really, really proud of with my dogs is their ability to self-relocate on grouse and not put a bird up. And I do a little bit different training with that would probably take about an hour to talk about, but you and I have talked about it a little bit offline with teaching stop to flush and how you incorporate that into
Yeah.
it. But that's really for me, because I've had, like, I remember with my early dogs that were like totally woe broke. If I'm not running trials and I walk up on a dog and it's so woe broke that it won't self relocate, and I'm getting false point after false point, and I got to relocate the dog, that used to drive me nuts. So now I've evolved to, like, you know what? I'd rather have the dog that is just like on that line of almost out of control, figuring it out on its own. And if it puts one up, big deal. It's so much better than a false point. But that's just me.
Yeah, I typically don't get a lot of false points. I kind of have dogs that, at least how I train them on birds, wild birds, is I want them to point, allow me to get there. And I can usually tell on the dog on the intensity if the bird is close or if it has left. And at that point, I have 2 dogs that I can release on the command of easy, and I have 1 other dog that she needs a little tap on the head right now to leave. Because I am doing some field trials with her, so I'm trying to get her to be a little bit more cautious because she does run like a raped ape.
So our evolution is very parallel.
Very similar, yeah. And then I want that.
Yeah,
like
you
my
are
dogs,
where I was at.
But my dogs, what I kind of expect is when they go to relocate, that they know the difference between how far that bird is. So if that bird has wandered off within 20 yards, I want that dog to basically hip hug the hunter with the gun and lead that. I don't want the dog to stop and point and then expect the hunter. And this is where, like a field trial dog, you're going to get docked for this. But I want that dog to creep along with the hunter and reveal where that bird is. That's what I expect is my dogs to hunt in the grouse woods, which is kind of counterproductive to, say, the cover dog trials. So that's why I have 1 dog that's just a little different right now. I want to get her through a derby season. I don't think I'll run her through as a fully broke dog, just because, again, it's not what I want to produce. I want to produce a slinky. Yeah. I think you know who Ann Jandernaw is. She's she talks about her setters in a slinky nature, and I think that's a great way that describes how I would like to see a dog work with the hunter in the woods. And that's you talked about earlier. It's something you can't train for. It's almost. I have a dog that does it really well. I have another dog that doesn't do it very well, and so I'm not sure if that's is that something that is a learned behavior, or is it just instinctive in the dog? And I might, the jury's out in my head yet on that, because I've got this younger dog that can't do it very well. She's only 2, so there's another year yet, at least my evaluation process in the dog, because it's just one of those things where I think it does take
that's important.
3 years to develop a good grouse dog, and I'm 100%
that's
with you.
That magic number is extremely important, because the prior question that we were building off of was, what goes into evaluation of a grouse dog. And if people that follow me on YouTube or Facebook or whatnot, they'll see that most of my dogs, I don't do a lot of hands-on or teaching or anything with them until they are into their 3rd hunting season, because I need to see what their natural ability is in the grouse woods. And to me, that's like your true natural ability, right? Like, I know that there's tests out there that are natural ability, but there's an awful lot of training that goes into those tests. And I look at it more as, what does this dog have on its own when it knows its name to come when called, and I can turn it in the woods? Now show me what you got. And that's how I do my basis for evaluation.
Well,
I want to see
at least I'm not that far off. I was, kind of trying to compare where at least my thought process is on it. And Yeah, my thought is you got to give a dog 2 years in the grouse woods, because the first year, if you're lucky, I think you can get a dog that's doing good things. But I think that there's dogs out there that are high drive or, maybe lack maturity in that first year that can really turn on in that second year and be fantastic. I think that maturity level in that first 3 years varies quite a bit. I really do. And I think that's part of that process. Don't get me wrong. I think, because you get the 6-month-old puppy that comes out of the box and does everything right. But I don't think that, we're talking about high standards here. And I've seen it for myself where, I've had issues with dogs that have a great nose, have great, mental, ability. They're smart, but they're just not mature. And
but the thing is, that's the unique part about the dogs.
Yeah, the ability to work a grouse on, it's like putting a 16-year-old in a freaking Lamborghini. Well,
they're all different. So my mentor is a fellow by the name of Bob Ross. He runs Top Gun Kennels. They're out in Ishpeming now, and I think he might be officially retired from dog training. He's around 80, but he still has his own personal gun dogs and he hunts. But he used to tell me, even within your own line of dogs, they're just like kids. Every single one of them is different. And I used to buy into that, but I never really knew that until I had kids. And when I had kids and I look at my 2 boys, I'm like, these kids they are totally different, man. They have the same phenotype because they kind of look like the rest of the family. But as far as individual stuff, yeah, they have athletic ability and things like that, but their personalities are worlds apart, man. And you find the same thing in dogs, and that plays into their development.
I've been I was struggled all last year with my youngest short hair. Because, man, was she putting up bird numbers, but I mean, she was flying everything. And I'm like, man, I know she's got a good nose. She's proved that to me before. And I don't know. It's just one of those things where that dog probably saw more birds than some guys did. The guy that hunts a couple times a year with his dog, it's going to take that dog a couple of years to get to the amount of dogs or birds.
But even when you think about you and I, right, because we're guiding, I mean, that even almost makes it worse for a younger dog, right? Because we've got to put up, right? People are paying good money for us to take them out, and they want to see our dogs work. If they don't have dogs, or even if they bring their dogs, they still want to see our dogs work. And that's going to put that young dog, kind of at a handicap, because it's not going to get to hunt all the time. And then when you don't have a guided hunt, you got to force yourself to get that young dog out.
I know. And it's a struggle. I carried around my pointer and my short hair all last year, took up 2 spots in my truck, was carrying around 5 kennels in there. And I only could drop them a few times during peak season. I got to hunt, luckily, because we had no snow in December, all of December, and worked those dogs, which was great. But when it comes down to, peak grouse hunting, they didn't get to see much time. And then, you got to have that conversation with customers too. And it's the right customer. Luckily I've had a few customers like, let's go see that little one run, And it's like, well,
same.
Let's keep your gun cracked. Because it just, if you don't mind, let's keep your gun cracked for this walk. And if she goes,
I've also found I've had similar really good customers that are interested in the whole experience. So to them, being able to watch me develop a young dog in the woods is part of that whole experience for them, because these are guys that are, they want to get something other than the hunt, right? They want to get a little bit of educational experience out of it. So above and beyond the habitat talks, right? When you're guiding somebody, you're telling them all the ins and outs about the habitat and the micro habitat and the escape covers and edges and all that stuff, but I've had quite a few that want to get into the whole experience about, hey, I'm thinking about getting a dog, I want to see how you develop a dog and stuff like that. And that makes it really cool.
Yeah. It does. And I've had a few customers that, would fall into that category. And, but it's just one of those things where I don't know, as much as they tell you that it's okay, I still don't feel right about it. It's like, this dog's not pointing birds. Like, it's going to be a long shot if it points a bird, but we'll let her out for half an hour.
Yeah, but I mean, the guys that really want to see the dog develop, I don't think they mind that.
They don't.
I mean, they're generally
it's still
dog guys.
I know, it's still a feeling.
You can have,
like, you're paying me for the day. I feel like you shouldn't be paying me for this.
and then you can have the, like the same conversation we're having. What goes into your breeding program? Well, I like noise and pointing instinct, and I like my dogs to have a lot of drive, and I like them to have this certain range. I like my dogs at 100 to 150 yards. I like them to be biddable. We talk about their temperament. Do you notice when you pulled up to the dog kennel, they weren't going batshit nuts. They were standing there calm, waiting to go. And, on top of that, let's talk about all of the, the health requirements, which is really big for me. Like, all of my dogs are on the chick registry. You can click on them on our website. It'll take you right to the OFA website, and you will see 20 years of breeding program health tests, and we started putting the genetic tests on there so people can check that out too. And you can go into all of that with those people, and they generally like to soak that up on how you get to that point.
It's very interesting because I've just kind of scratched the surface into, there's, and it's a tough world when you start looking at pedigrees as well. You can start looking for CHs and HOF and all these titles on there. But on the same token, there's a lot of dogs that don't have titles that are fantastic hunting dogs. And I'd argue, being in the guiding business with dogs is kind of, it's a blessing and a curse to a certain degree, because there's a fine line of even, an argument for, steady to shot, is
sure.
From a safety perspective. And, I don't really have an argument with that, but, having a fully broke dog, steady to release, to a certain degree, my clients definitely wing some birds, and I do think giving the dog a little bit of a head start there adds to game recovery. So I've kind of struggled with, going and fully breaking a dog in that respect. So it's, I don't know, it's I guess a rabbit hole.
But you have to I tend to make myself feel better about that, because like I have a lot of friends that do run trials, and they josh me every now and then because my dogs don't have titles or whatnot, and they're not fully broke. But, it's important to remember that what we're doing when we're grouse hunting itself is conservation, right? It is a conservation tool that, thank God there was a guy named Aldo Leopold, which, by the way, I could digress into the fact that my Panzer dog is actually a mapped relative to Aldo's dog Gus. But anyhow, it's about the conservation of game, right? Hunting is conservation, and if you're going to conserve game, you want that dog on that bird, right? You've seen, I bet this happens to you, but I have people that will tell you they will come out hunting with me. My dog will track, relocate, go on point. When we get up to the dog, it'll dive forward and pick up a bird that has a broken wing that had been shot before, and the wing has got gangrene all over it and stuff like that, right? Well, you could get into the nuances of, is that fair to the bird or whatever, but the fact of the matter is the sum of everything here is that bird was destined to die. And now we put it out of its misery, and it was conservation of game because we harvested the animal instead of wasting it. That's the way I look at it.
Yeah, and I don't know. I'd argue too, back to the point of, you know, I want my dogs to be able to recover that bird. And
absolutely.
And who knows?
You don't want somebody else's dog being my dog finding that cripple.
Exactly. We found 2 cripples last year. So it's not actually.
That's a sick feeling to me, man. That when my dog finds a cripple, I actually feel a little sick to my stomach about it. I don't know if I'm getting soft in my old age, like a tank commander can like go soft, but I mean, the reality is it makes me feel a little sick to my stomach. Like, how did this happen?
Yeah, you never know. I mean, the one that I'm thinking of right now, the other one was definitely probably a shot bird. The one, I don't know. We didn't see it. It didn't look like it was shot. So I'm not sure if it was totally a cripple, but yeah, you find any dead animal suffering. I don't know. I'm a softie. I don't know. The last few deer I shot, it was kind of like it was a moment, you know. I used to kill deer all the time and never think twice about it. But you know,
I'm with you.
I don't know. It's one of them things. Man. I think when you start sitting out watching birds on your bird feeder, you start to get a little soft, maybe.
Yeah, I don't know if it's the whole bird watching thing, but I think it's the evolution. It's the evolution of a hunter, right? You think about when you were a kid, like one of the first things I killed was like a chipmunk with a BB gun, and it was like a lesson. It was like, why did I kill that thing? You know, I felt remorseful or whatnot. But then you get a little bit older, and then you're like, okay, I'm a legit hunter, and you love killing shit because you love eating it. You love the harvest, and it's all about numbers. How many birds did I kill? How many birds did I kill? And then, you know, how many was it, a 10-point buck or whatever? And then as you mature and you evolve over time, your life experiences and whatnot teach you different values about ecological systems and life and everything else. And I think you do kind of go soft. You come back to the was it the Guy de Levine book, you know, where he talked all about that stuff? I can't.
I'm not as well read as I probably should be.
Yeah, well, I'm probably off on the actual author, but there was a guy that wrote about, you know, that actual evolutionary process and talked about how he felt as he matured and stuff like that. And I honestly think it's all a process that we go through. Like, I take my boys hunting. My son has shot some nice bucks. I'm super ecstatic when he shoots the bucks. Me, where I'm at right now, if that buck walked out and I was hunting by myself, I'm not sure if I'd actually pull the trigger if I just tip my hat. I don't know if I'm losing the killer instinct or not, so I'm with you.
I definitely, at least by the doe numbers out back here at the farm, I'm not going to have any shame taking some baldies this year and letting a few bucks go.
Oh, no. No, I don't have any shame with that. But when you get to that moment, right, that actual moment of the act, and especially it's much more intense with big game, you know, with a bird, not so much as long as the bird doesn't suffer. But when you pick up those crippled birds, like you said, anything that's like a crippled animal, it's just like, man, this sucks.
Yeah, it's actually one of the reasons why I kind of stepped out of my big interest in. I mean, I have a pretty decent sized bone pile from antler collections and whitetails I've shot, but I don't know. As I kind of my eyesight is not as good as it used to be, and that's what I'm blaming it on. But I spine shot the last 2 whitetails I shot, and it was, like I said, it was a big moment for me. And You know, it's one thing when
I've done that before.
One thing when you plunge one through the pump house and they run off and die away from you, but when you enable them to move and you see the fear in their eye, it's a little bit different, and it just doesn't float my boat anymore. I'd rather watch my dog.
I did that.
Flush a bird.
I've had one of those. I've had that same experience with a deer, man. I had that same experience. I spinaled the deer, and you're walking up to it, and it's looking at you, and it can't move, and it's just like you can feel all of that stuff, man. It is not pleasant.
Yeah, that was kind of when I stopped chasing horns. It was like, man.
And it's the same thing. Like, I don't know, honestly, this could be turning into like a philosophical discussion, but one of the things
we got to get to the Bonanza.
One of the things I hate is when I see the social media pictures of a dog retrieving a bird that's still alive, and people are like, "Yeah, that's cool." I'm like, no, it's not. So not cool, man.
Yeah, I struggle with that a little bit because I don't believe in giving fuel to the anti-hunting group.
Exactly, and that's exactly what that stuff does. We really
shoot ourselves in the foot.
As hunters in general, man, we need to clean that stuff up. You know, the whole whole piles of birds on the tailgate and all that crap. And we can do better.
Yeah, and I'm definitely guilty of it, but at the same time, you know, I have a business I'm trying to promote, so like I don't even like to think that I get a pass on that, so I struggle with it. You know, it's like I do want to post pictures of birds and customers with birds, and there's
a different way to do it, right? Like you can go find a nice moss covered log and put the birds on there in more of a posture that reflects, you know, the conservation of game and the actual, you know, the coolness and the magic aspect of it. Yeah. Rather than just like pile them up on a tailgate.
Yeah. No, I agree. I definitely agree. Well, let's shift some gears here because we're getting a little philosophical and long winded, and I think that
we've made sure that we're going to have a second podcast.
Yeah, because I do want to dive into, you know, puppy development, and some of the things that you do in your kind of training program related to, you know, just dogs in general, because I think that there's part of exposure and training for certain things within the grouse and a grouse dog specifically that you know, at least what you're doing, you know, it doesn't really matter on a breed, and I think that would be very. I think people would hopefully find some useful tools in that conversation. But
I think they would.
You've got an event coming up that you've done now for a few years. How many years you been doing the Bonanza?
This is going to be our third year.
Yeah. I noticed it a couple of years ago, and it's a pretty jam-packed event. You sent me the details. I really do want to try to get there. My dilemma is anytime I board dogs these days, now that I have 4, and I leave for more than an evening, man, does that get expensive. So yeah, I'm still trying to figure that out. We'll have to talk about a little bit of that offline because I got some questions.
Yeah, bring them. We got room. But yeah, you want to talk about the event?
Yeah, let's talk about the event. Like I said, there's a lot of things going on. A lot of I read through it, and you know, it's just a wide variety of stuff, grouse and hunting related, and I think that, you know, there's a lot for anybody in the spectrum of novice to expert that might be interested in some of the things you got going on.
So it's called the Bonanza, which apparently we might have stolen the name from RGS because I think they have an event called Bonanza in the fall, which is their membership drive, but that's neither here nor there. But it's really, it started out as kind of like, you know, we're going through post-COVID and we're starting to see more people get into the sport. But when you saw that happening, you had to notice, like, there were a lot of people that were adult onset hunters but they didn't really have any idea of how to like really do it. You know what I mean? And typically with grouse hunting, just like the old muskie hunters, right? They're like the secretive crowd. Like, how do I break into grouse hunting? Because all these guys are grumpy old dudes that have all these secret spots and stuff like that. And what we really wanted to do was kind of open it up as kind of an attempt at R3 and growing grouse hunting and the dog culture and everything that was like the momentum that we saw during COVID, once people realized that they didn't have to occupy their time every night spending money on something completely useless, where they could actually like get a dog and go outside and rediscover their roots of small game hunting or learn a new sport or something. So what we did was we put together this, it's kind of like, it's really a small scale attempt at replicating a pheasant fest that the Pheasants Forever has. And we put together some seminars, we take field trips, we have some hands-on dog training, we have really excellent food. This year we're going to have some live music. And then everything that everybody learns on the first couple of days, that culminates into a mentored simulated grouse hunt on the final day, where one person will go out with a mentor or a guide, and they'll run their own dog, and they get to, pick the cover based upon the habitat that they learned, and so on and so forth. And then they have somebody going along with them saying, hey, you're doing a good job, or hey, you might want to think about this or whatever. And we found that, the first year that we did it, I think we might have had like 10 or 12 people. And then last year we had 25, and I think we're close to 30 now, which, I mean, it's small scale, right? We run it out of the local clubhouse in town, which is a township community center. And then we run it up here at the kennel. So we're kind of getting maxed out of space there, but also it allows us to have more one-on-one attention with people. And it's really, the goal of the event is, it's kind of a combination of fun, some training, and a lot of networking. It's chaperoned by a lot of knowledgeable people in the Upland community who I would consider, grouse-centric folks, which leads to a lot of knowledge, not only coming from the seminars we do, but when, a small group and you have attendees having lunch, might be having a beer, sitting around the campfire or whatnot, we talk and assist a lot of these novice grouse hunters. And honestly, I think one of the things that I don't think a lot of people see, because of the advent of social media, it seems like everybody's an upland hunter or a grouse hunter, but that's not the reality. Everybody seems to be an upland hunter or a grouse hunter because that's who we choose to be friends with on social media. But the reality is, grouse hunting is a declining sport. Small game hunting's been on the decline for many, many years. And, even though we might be able to complain that some of the grouse woods are crowded, but the reality is they're not. And really what it boils down to is the opportunity is shrinking. And we need to grow the sport to combat that, right? Like, one of the things we're struggling with right now in our local area is Marquette is no doubt like the national destination for mountain biking, right? Well, some of that mountain biking is making its way into the state forest lands where people grouse hunt at. And that recreational opportunity becomes a numbers game, right? You obviously were in sales before and stuff. You know how the numbers game works. Well, it's the same thing for resource management. And so, we're trying to grow the sport. We have it available for people that are, entry level, novice, even experienced people come to this. There's dog breeders that come to this, other guides come to it, all for the sake of trying to grow the sport. And the bonus is all of the proceeds from the Bonanza go directly to fund our Operation Aspen Thunder, which is a veterans grouse hunt we do every October, and we do that in conjunction with BDM gun dogs out of Wisconsin, but soon to be moving home to Rock, Michigan, which is pretty close to us here in Gwynn.
So where can people find out more information about the Bonanza? And kind of, obviously you guys are raising funds for that. So is there a cost associated to attending?
Yeah, so there is a cost with it, and keep in mind, I'm going to start calling it like the Grouse Hunting Collective Network, because that's essentially what it turns into. Because we had people last year that came from Kentucky, and next thing you know, they made friends with one of the guides that was here or whatever, and some of the people, and they came back up here hunting in the fall, and they had somebody to go hunt with, and it wasn't like a pay for guided hunt. It was just like, hey, you seem pretty cool. I don't think you're gonna, like rob covers or anything, and you really truly want to get in the sport, so let's hook up this October. So we kind of call it the Grouse Collective, but you can go to our website, which is www.aspenthicketgrousedogs.com, or you can go to our Facebook page and then find our webpage from there. And then there's on the homepage, there's actually a listing of events, and you go to that Bonanza, and you just click on order tickets, and it takes you to the page itself. And there's a link on that page with more information about the event, about who's going to be there, what the seminars are going to be on. I was actually just considering one today that I'm going to be doing, is going to be on grouse hunting the weather. What happens when you're on a trip and the weather goes bad? How do you adjust your hunt? And I think that's going to be a really good one for some of the hunters that most people honestly aren't as blessed as you and I. They have to travel a little bit to hunt. Well, what do you do if rain comes in or something like that? You and I know that you can still hunt, but not a lot of people know how to hunt or where to hunt in that situation. So that's an example of one of the seminars we're going to do.
There's a fine line in which you can hunt too, though.
Yeah.
I definitely know how to, if it's a drizzle or light rain, I can deal with that 100%. If it's a moderate to heavy rain, we're kind of, effed.
Yeah. You're back to partridge hunting.
Yeah. You're back to partridge hunting, looking for dry spots under pine trees.
Yeah. But, so anyhow, really, you can attend with a dog or without a dog. I think it's 125 without a dog and 200 with a dog. And again, all those proceeds go to fund the veterans hunt. They also pay for the tremendous amount of food that we're going to have here. So the food that we have, I have two good friends, David Weaver and Joe Schwenke, and they're both associated with the Michigan Upland Habitat Collective type thing. And what they do every year is they auction off a field lunch. And with those two cooking, that field lunch goes for like $6,000 a year. Like, these guys are bona fide sous chefs. One's an electrician and they work in IT, but I'm telling you, they should be chefs somewhere. Like, these dudes put out some really, really good grub. So, typically like Friday night for the opening reception, they'll, whip up some kind of steak and all kinds of glorious sides with it and stuff like that. And the same thing for on the weekend. The lunch actually on Saturday is a real big one where they do stuff like that. And Joe makes his amazing custard pies for dessert. That in itself is a reason to come.
You're making me hungry because, I did a podcast earlier today for somebody else, and that I was a guest on, which was pretty cool. But then we're meeting pretty late, especially on your time, and I forego dinner tonight. And I have a brat and a hot dog from my favorite little Wednesday pop-up brat stand in downtown Amory.
Sweet.
So you're making me hungry now with the custard pie.
Oh, I'm going to eat after this, even though it's like 10:15 Eastern time. Like, I came home and this was my day, right? So I took the wife's Subaru Outback down to, I had to go downstate Michigan because my son's wrestling for the Michigan national team at Fargo. And I was driving her car and I noticed that her brake rotors were shot. So, like, okay, I get the stuff and I come home and I'm like, well, I got to talk to Brian tonight. I got to do a little dog work and I got to do these rotors. So I don't have time to eat. So they made tacos or something. And I just like threw some salad in a bowl with some taco meat and whipped it down and went and changed the front rotors on the car. Got to do the back ones tomorrow. Went and trained dogs, got cleaned up, and now I'm on the podcast. So yeah, I'm hungry too.
Yeah, you didn't have 2 vet visits today though, and get to miss out on training dogs.
Well, you got to have more than one stapler handy.
I know. That was such a bummer. For the listeners who don't know, I had my little pointer ran into a little barbed wire out back, and I went to staple her up, and I had one staple in the staple gun, so she had to go to the vet today, unfortunately.
You know, the good deal is, though, you have a nice vet because you were able to get in today.
We have a few in the area that I have a network of vets that I use.
I can't complain. I've got a really good vet that I've been using for 24 years now. We had since got the first dog. And she's actually going to be presenting at the Bonanza on canine first aid in the field and how to stabilize your dog from a vet's perspective.
Sure.
The expectations of the vet. So I think that's going to be really cool.
Yeah, that would be really neat. I've heard a few vet dog I've been to a trauma one, and I've done just kind of your standard, what kind of problems can you run into and kind of how can you deal with it from vets. And I think it's super helpful. I mean, I learned, about the hypoglycemia stuff, from one of those vet talks. Then I witnessed a friend's dog do it. And then recently I had one of my dogs do it, and just out of the blue, 10 years old, I got a little hot and I don't think she ate breakfast. I feed a little bit in the morning, 1 cup, and then 2 cups in the evening just to kind of space things out, for that reason. Hard charging dogs, want to have a little bit in their system. And yeah, I don't know, it happened. And it was like, oh my gosh, carrying a dog that's kind of half sieging back to the house and shoving honey down her face, and watching a dog go from that to being completely normal in 30 seconds was pretty wild. But if I didn't attend a conversation like that and, have an experience, I wouldn't have been able to recognize it right away and know what I had to do. So yeah. I think it's really impactful for people when they do get those types of seminars. I think there's little things they learn, and you'd be surprised where it comes up.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, then the thing is, like, unless you go to a pheasant fest or a seminar or something like that, it's not something that you're really going to find out about from a vet.
I always kind of grill my vets when I go in, try to get as much information as I can and kind of see how flexible they are, because I've had vets before who, they didn't want to remove the staples I had put in. And that was the last vet visit we had with them. And yeah, it was just, I don't know, long story.
Well, that
They just
that
didn't want to
word,
deal with my dogs anymore. I'm convinced with that. But anyways,
again, we could be dealing with that magical word of liability also, right? That and you can't blame vet for that every now and then.
no, I can't. But now that I've moved away from civilization, we'll say,
Now you're dealing with the real cool vets, man. Like the vets where we're at in this open country and in the woods and stuff like that. That most of them hunt, right? Or they're large animal vets. I mean, there's no bullshitting around, for lack of a better term. They're good people.
So I've got the vet that I take them to for like the regular stuff, and then I have the large animal vet that I call for emergency surgery stuff. Cause I mean, it's the reason I do it is because he allows me to be with the animal the whole time. You know, like I'm with my dog throughout the whole thing. Like you go to emergency care, they take the dog back. You know, you're just sitting in a waiting room like freaking hospital. Like, I want to know I'm paying you good money, you know, to sew up my dog. I want to see how you do it. Like, and you know, and it's not because I want to skimp out on vet care, but I'm away from vets a fair amount where I hunt my dogs, and I want to know. Yeah, I just want to know how to deal with it if I have to. You know, instead of
we're
watching
like the consummate,
you know,
dude, we're like the consummate grouse hunting clinic for my vet. It's like she lives, I don't know, she only lives a couple miles away from me, and I've known Dr. Wilcox for a long time, and I've had emergencies on the weekend where like her husband drives her in, and Bert is awesome because Bert's a grouse hunter. Like I think they had used to have small Moonsalanders, and now I think they're into flushing dogs. Although I could take a crack at a small Moonsalander and call that a flushing dog too, but somebody get mad and then you lose a podcast subscriber. But it's just a joke.
Probably lost one.
It's just a joke. But yeah, like so Bert would drive Gene to the clinic, and Gene would be working on the dog, and I'd be like standing back there helping him like a large animal vet, you know. And then Bert's like, so where are you finding birds at? And we're having the whole side conversation about hunting while Doc's working on the dog.
Yeah, I definitely have had
if
that.
If that's Mayberry, I'm happy, right? If that's Mayberry, I'm happy because it feels like it to me.
I've had very similar conversation with Dr. Bull before. You know, can you help hold the dog down? Yep, I can do that. So where do you guide? You grouse on, huh? You find many woodcock? Yeah. Yeah, I've definitely been in that exact scenario. So we ran around the planet here in our conversation, touched on a lot, dove into a little. Where did you feel maybe we didn't we left things a little too open-ended, or anything we missed that you wanted to discuss? And
I don't think we were really looking for a total pointed conversation. I think we probably set the stage to have another good discussion about getting that puppy and doing the puppy development.
Yeah, exactly. And that's I think you know, with the advent of COVID, a lot of people bought puppies, and I think there's a fair amount of people who, you know, either are going to be a one puppy family, but I think that there's people who are like, maybe I do want another dog, you know. And I think that education process, you know, and what goes into kind of, you know, the whole, even from a novice looking at, you know, talking to the breeder, looking at pedigrees, like what really matters. And then, you know, on top of that, like, well, what do you do to develop that dog at a young age? And, you know, I see the wing and string thing still. And like, so there's some myths and things that we could touch on in another conversation that I think would be good.
Right. Yeah. Oh yeah, definitely. definitely talk about genetics, exposure, and patience.
I had a few dogs that were lacking patience this evening while we were on the conversation. I'm sure you heard them pawing at the door out here. So
that's all good. That means they like you, right?
Well, we missed we missed a fun game we play in the evening. Usually about 7:30 because I don't like to push it too much later than that. But it's called Find the Covey out back, and yeah, okay. they missed the game, and we definitely heard them whistling this afternoon. So yeah, I put a Johnny house out back, and I don't know. Half of the birds just decided that they're going to be okay living outside now. So it's kind of weird.
I did a Johnny house one time about 10 years ago or so, and it was the same way. And it was it was one of those barrel houses. I got the plans from Gun Dog magazine or whatever, and did everything I was supposed to do, keep the male in there. He'll call the birds back, whatever. And, I'd go training on state land like a mile down the road and be flushing bobwhites. So I don't know what happened.
Yeah, it's not a bad thing. I've raised and released some pheasants out back here the last few years, and we've actually flushed and found a couple broods here, and had trained in the morning, and we're like, oh, there's a brood of pheasants. Let's so we didn't train in the evening, try to give them a shot, but yeah, it's nice to see. I don't know. It's just bird contacts, and grouse dog or not, I truly am a believer that yeah, you need grouse exposure to run a dog on grouse. But I think that
you better believe it.
I still believe that if you can run a dog on a bunch of different bird species, that it can do pretty good on grouse.
Oh, absolutely.
And that's yeah. The ones that can figure out grouse can pretty much figure out anything. And I think dogs that I've watched dogs that are really good quail dogs, not as good in grouse. So
right. Yeah, no, absolutely.
But
absolutely.
That's a whole nother discussion too, in a rabbit hole. I guess, Dennis, thanks for coming on the podcast, and I give you an opportunity to plug the Bonanza one more time and any kind of closing remarks.
Oh, sure. So, yeah, Bonanza. It is August 1st, 2nd, and 3rd. It's in the central upper peninsula of Michigan in the town of Gwinn. We're about 20 miles south of Marquette. Look us up at www.aspenthicketgrousedogs.com and come join our grouse hunting collective. And we have some really cool, live music Saturday night. Adam Carpenter, kind of like country folk type stuff. It's really cool. Used to run the band Chasing Steel. So doing that. And other than that, I'd like to thank you for the opportunity. I can sit and talk dogs forever. I guess you found out I'm kind of long-winded, and but hopefully
I met somebody who could talk more than me.
Hopefully people kind of enjoy just this conversation, and I do look forward to our future discussion about puppy development. Puppy development to me that's it. That's where you make your money as a person owning a dog. Your puppy development, that first 3 years is extremely important with grouse dogs. And there's a method to the madness. It applies to all breeds. And I look forward to having an opportunity to chat about it in the future.
Right on, Dennis. Well, thanks again for coming on the show.
Hey, thanks for having me.
Thank you for listening to another episode of the Amaazen Outdoors podcast. Like I mentioned in the beginning of the show, Wisconsin, doing it right, doing the habitat work. Thank you, Wisconsin Sharp-tailed Grouse Society. Thank you, Wisconsin DNR, for putting in the work. If you have not applied yet, Wisconsin's going to have a limited draw sharp-tailed grouse hunt First time since like 2018. Super excited. I've got my application in. It's $3. You should probably try to get a tag. Quick shout out to the Wisconsin Sharp-tailed Grouse Society. If you're not a member, become a member. They're doing some awesome work. Prairie Chicken Project of Wisconsin, another great organization trying to save our prairie chickens in central Wisconsin. HW Launchers, Hunt Ready, RPM Training Products. I can't think of anything else other than like, share, subscribe, tell a friend about the show, and thank you for being a loyal listener here at the Amaazen Outdoors Podcast. I'm Brian Mays. I'm out of here. We'll catch you on the next show.
There's a woodcock.